My name is Anthony Reyna. I am a junior finance major and Leonard Leadership Scholar, but most importantly today, I'm introducing our speaker, Gina Drosos. She has recently been named CEO of Assurex Health after she was president last year. With 25 years of executive leadership experience, she has served as group president for global beauty care at Procter Gamble. During her career at P&G, she transformed and reinvented brands like Olay, Old Spice, and CoverGirl. She has been recognized throughout her career for outstanding achievement and leadership, receiving P&G Top Manager Diversity Award, YWCA Career Woman of Achievement, and was twice featured on Fortune's 50 Most Powerful Women in Business. She graduated from Terry College, magna cum laude, and went on to receive her MBA at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. She has spoken at Terry College before, so today she is showing her clear partiality to our school. So please join me with a warm welcome for Gina Drosos.
Thank you very much. Very nice welcome. Well, good morning, everyone. I understand some of you are getting course credit today, which is great. There won't be any quizzes or anything, so hopefully that's a welcome change. It's really a thrill to be here. I love coming back to campus. It's an honor. I appreciate Dean Ayers inviting me and the rest of the Terry leadership team, some of our friends from the honors program here. It's just great to be part of campus and to be able to address you today. Georgia, when I came here, was certainly a fantastic university, but it's exciting to me to see how students like you and administrators like these have really helped to transform the campus to be one of the preeminent public universities in the world. That makes it clearly a prime location for people like me to reach great talent. So I'm looking forward to meeting very many of you today. My goal is to share with you some what I hope are helpful and very actionable leadership concepts, ones that you can put to use in organizations that you're leading here on campus, team meetings that you have, as well as prepare you for roles that you will take with companies or firms or practices that you become part of after graduation. Hopefully it can inspire you to think a little bit differently and maybe even make some connections that you hadn't made before. There are 4 key ideas that I'll share with you this afternoon. The first is why I believe a compelling vision is so important. And in fact, one of the most important things you can do to be a strong leader. The steps that I think are necessary to create that vision, the insights that I've gained in my career on how to be a leader that inspires people to bring your vision to life. And I'll conclude with my vision for my company and the role that I think that personalized medicine can play in healthcare. Put simply, compelling visions inspire people to action. They change behaviors, they drive business results. Having a compelling vision is important both for the business or the organization that you're leading and also in your life to guide your career and your life journey. And in my experience, it always works best when these 2 things come together. So I'll start by telling you a little bit about me and the compatible visions that have shaped my work and life. I was born in Macon, Georgia. I grew up in Atlanta. I studied finance here at the University of Georgia, in part because I took a cost accounting class that changed my mind about that being my major. I enjoyed being involved in a wide variety of organizations on campus, and I always envisioned going to law school, following in my father's footsteps. But I changed my mind to pursue an MBA after a highly successful entrepreneurial experience charting sailboats through the Bahamas for spring break my junior year. I decided that I wanted to create precedents as opposed to interpret it. And my UGA professors and mentors encouraged me to apply to the Ivy League. So when I got a direct acceptance from the Wharton School, I packed my bags and went to Philadelphia. After a terrific internship experience, I accepted a full-time role at Procter Gamble. I spent most of my career at P&G managing increasingly larger portfolios of brands. I started as a brand assistant on spick and span floor cleaners, literally the lowest level brand job that there is. And after about 20 years of hard work and terrific learning experiences with great colleagues, I became the group president of Global Beauty Care, managing more than 40 brands $6 billion in annual sales, and more than 6,000 employees across 120 countries. And this is my family who supported me all along the way. You can see my husband Perry and me with our children Will and Claire. My son Will's a senior, was here on a college visit to Georgia last weekend, as was Claire. She's a junior. They double dated to the prom, which is kind of a nice thing. There they are at the Tennessee game last weekend, and our two dogs, Chai sporting her Georgia jersey. Zoe dresses like a cheerleader for the games. I didn't have a good photo. So great experience working at P&G. I lived in Cincinnati, Baltimore, Geneva, Switzerland, and traveled literally all over the world. Saudi Arabia, India, Nigeria. In fact, you can see a program that we did there in Nigeria teaching kids to wash their hands. We did it in partnership with the CDC in Atlanta. But it turns out that 50% of the diseases that children die from in developing markets are preventable through good hand washing. So teaching kids to wash their hands can make a profound difference. So just a great experience. You might recognize a few of our accomplishments. We were able to make Olay the #1 moisturizer brand in the world, bringing technology better than department store brands at accessible price points. We expanded Olay all around the world, literally, took it from $200 million in sales to $2.5 billion. And now it's the #1 brand, not only in the US and Canada, but also China, Singapore, Thailand, Philippines, Spain, all countries that we were able to launch the brand into. Making CoverGirl #1 again, with industry-leading mascaras and facial foundation technologies promoted by celebrities that hopefully would be appealing to all of you. Queen Latifah, Ellen, Taylor Swift, Pink, Katy Perry, all very interesting women, by the way. And then we reinvented Old Spice, from your grandpa's aftershave to a young men's grooming lineup with deodorants, body washes, body sprays. I'll show you the Hallmark commercial from that campaign, because I think none of us can ever forget Isaiah Mustafa's "Hello, ladies."
Hello, ladies. Look at your man. Now back to me. Now back at your man. Now back to me. Sadly, he isn't me. But if he stopped using lady-scented body wash and switched to Old Spice, he could smell like he's me. Look down. Back up. Where are you? You're on a boat with the man your man could smell like. What's in your hand? Back at me. I have it. It's an oyster with 2 tickets to that thing you love. Look again. The tickets are now diamond. Anything is possible when your man smells like Old Spice and not a lady. I'm on a horse.
This campaign was a lot of fun, not only because it was filmed in a very different technique. If you notice, we stay on camera with Isaiah Mustafa the entire time and move the background around him, which was a very different filming technique. It was invented by Wyden and Kennedy, who's Nike's agency, the first time P&G had used that company, and it really resonated. We had Isaiah Mustafa via social media doing wedding proposals for people and all kinds of interesting things. So it was a lot of fun. So meanwhile, as I was working at P&G, there was a startup company in Cincinnati, Ohio called Assurex Health. This is a company that was located in Mason, about 15 minutes north of Cincinnati. They had begun assembling an outstanding team of leaders, and they were developing a personalized medicine test, a genetic test that could help doctors choose the right medication for their patients with psychiatric illnesses, which is a really tough challenge, by the way. About 50% of the time when someone is diagnosed with a mental illness and their doctor chooses to put them on a medication, whether it's for depression or anxiety or bipolar, schizophrenia, even chronic pain or ADHD, less than half of the time the medication works for them. But with our genetic test, it doubles the success rate of getting them on the right medication, so a significant improvement. So I began to learn about this test and the experience of this management team, and I thought it was pretty exciting. Meanwhile, I had decided that while I loved my career at P&G, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I loved the time in a business when it was really beginning to grow, when you had a fantastic idea that you could scale up and take more broadly, and I wanted to do something more profoundly to help people. I sat in focus groups all around the world, and I can tell you that beauty products do make a difference, like the Safeguard example I gave, or building confidence for people. But it's much more profound, in my opinion, to help people get onto the right psychiatric medication so that they can reclaim their lives. So we met, and I decided to make the jump from running a big division of a big company to being part of a small startup. I was employee number 113. So pretty exciting. Now we have, a year later, 220 employees, so very fast growing. So what we do is, as I mentioned, when a doctor is getting ready to prescribe a medication for a patient, they do a simple genetic test. They take a cheek swab, just like CSI Miami, rub it on the inside of the patient's cheek. They send it to us in a FedEx envelope. We process it in our high-complexity genetics lab, and within 36 hours, we produce a report that looks like this on this page, where we categorize the medications into green, yellow, and red. Green being the medications that are genetically optimal for that patient, red the ones that are genetically discordant, probably will not have the level of efficacy the doctor wants, probably will cause high side effects, and then yellow's in the middle. You need to titrate the dosing. So it's a very simple, intuitive report that makes a profound difference in the treatment of patients. So, clinically validated results now, very fast-growing company. Where do we go from here? And as Alice said to the Cheshire Cat, and he said to her, "Where are you going?" And she said, "I don't know." And he said, "Well, then it doesn't matter. Any road will get you there." But my premise today, and I hope you'll agree with me, is that constructing a compelling vision is the way to get there. And that's what we can think about in our classes, in our lives, and in our business. I believe there are 4 important steps necessary in constructing a vision. You must see it, experience it, communicate it, and improve it. So first, seeing it. A great vision starts with a thorough landscape analysis. Looking at things how they really are, not how you want them to be. At least, not yet. This analysis should be highly objective and analytical. Using a framework is helpful to ensure that you cover all the bases. Something like Michael Porter's 5 forces or a SWOT analysis. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to plot your competitive position. Great chess players, anybody here play chess? Great chess players have a saying called seeing the whole board. It means not just seeing your next move, but the one after that, and the one after that. And of course, these moves are impacted by anticipating the moves of your opponent. Second, size up your competition. What makes you different and better? Identify your competitive advantages and then invest behind them. Always play harder to your strengths than the time that you spend working on your weaknesses. With your weaknesses, you just want them not to become vulnerabilities, but it's your strengths that will take you the furthest. Think big. Look not just for industry trends, but broader societal trends. For example, healthcare is certainly moving toward a more individualized approach. But this is not just a healthcare trend. This is an overall societal trend, including designing your own athletic shoes online, tattoos as a form of personal expression, creating YouTube videos, individualization enabled by technology. GeneSight is clearly an individualized genetic test, but in a bigger way, it's an accelerator and a pathfinder of medication solutions. When we see GeneSight as an individual's GPS on the road to mental wellness, it certainly informs our vision of the future in a different way. It's also very helpful to define your business as small. For example, in the early days, it was very easy to see Olay moisturizer as the #1 brand. If you looked at the market share in the U.S. mass market, Olay was the #1 brand in that context. But that was seeing ourselves as big, which really didn't inspire much passion for the team to change and grow. But when we stepped back and we saw the whole board, and we looked at Olay in the context of all of the skincare products that women might use, even the ones that they buy in specialty stores or department stores that they order online. And when we didn't just look at the U.S. market, but we looked globally, Olay was actually quite small. We were the 6th brand and less than a 10% share. Now, becoming #1 in that market was a challenge and something that got us all out of bed in the morning. Finally, be concrete in your scenario planning. Think about how the market might change. Define the ends of the continuum, the extreme upside and the extreme downside. I often have the what's the worst that can happen and what's the best that can happen conversations. Once you've answered these questions, then you'll be prepared for all of the possibilities that can happen in between. The next part of creating a compelling vision is to experience it. My biggest advice is to put yourself into diverse situations and see for yourself how people perceive you, your business, and your products. When I became president of cosmetics at P&G, I worked for a day at the cosmetics counter of Boots in London. It's one of the world's leading drugstore chains. It was a very eye-opening, scary, and rewarding experience to be behind the cosmetics counter selling our products all day. But I got so many great ideas for product improvements that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise, and I got a few new makeup tips. Since I've been at Assurex Health, I visit our lab at the busiest time of day and watch the team work. I've been out on calls with our sales reps. I've sat in doctors' offices, hearing their joy about our product and particularly their complaints about some of our processes. It's very helpful to sit next to a customer service rep, the person who's taking the calls from people who are either elated or very discouraged about your product. As a leader, I can then see firsthand how I can help. So I ask you to think, what can you do to disrupt your comfort zone? Who can you talk to? Or more importantly, listen to, who will give you a perspective that's different than your own, and that may bring new insights. Be a confident enough leader to surround yourself with people who are different from you. You really do not want yes people on the team. Because by definition, the only thing a leader truly cannot see is her own blind spots. In order to see 360 degrees, you must value and seek out diversity. You must find people of different genders, ethnicity, educational background, thinking style, perspective, and experience, because they will help you see the things that you cannot. People who are curious and value differences, who represent different ways of doing things, see the opportunities that other people miss. Hire them. Develop them. Keep them. Get them into your organization. Encourage communication and camaraderie in the team. Sports coaches know this. When everyone is on board, bought in, signed up, your team is different. That's why championship teams talk about intangibles, like having the it and chemistry that propelled them to win. The third step is to make the vision simple to articulate. It has to be something that can be communicated easily, memorized, thought about in meetings, all the way to the ends of the organization. I was fortunate in my career to have learned from the very best on this, A.G. Lafley, the former and current CEO of Procter Gamble. A.G. turned the strategy of a huge multinational corporation into a few simple and memorable phrases that the entire organization could remember and use to guide their decision-making. These included the consumer as boss, which was his way of articulating that everything P&G does as a company is about serving the consumer. The consumer was his boss, and that was a way to make sure that the entire organization felt the same way. Or winning the 2 moments of truth. AG talked about how there are 2 times when people really make a decision about your product or your service. When they buy it, so when they're standing at the shelf, and when they use it, because they're making a repurchase decision. Did it work? Did it perform the way that they wanted to? So we prioritized winning those 2 moments, and it made a profound difference for the business. Simplicity trumps complexity every time. It's easy but wrong to become enamored with how smart we can sound or how great our technology is and make things overly complex. Strategic communication is not telling all you know. It is telling the fewest, most important things to enable good decision-making. In fact, there's a transformative opportunity to flip the dialogue in healthcare. It's important to provide better transparency to consumers to help them with decision-making, to enable more patient-empowered decisions. This includes helping consumers to deselect options in healthcare, not presuming what is right for them and telling them that. So, for example, with our test, GeneSight, if it's going to make life better for people with behavioral health conditions, then we have to make it easier for them to understand what the test is and how to access it. GeneSight doesn't diagnose illnesses, and it isn't needed for people who are on the right medications with well-controlled symptoms. But there are tens of millions of people who aren't, and it is right for them. It can profoundly help them. So we need to communicate simply in ways that they can remember so they can ask their doctor about it. The last and fourth step of creating a compelling vision is to improve it. It might seem counterintuitive, but no matter how satisfied you are with your beautifully written vision, strategies, and plans, you must continually improve them. Keep the big picture constant, but continually learn how to make the execution better. Create a culture of improvement so that everyone is about making improvements. When I worked in Baltimore managing the cosmetics organization, I kept steel-toed shoes and a hairnet in my office drawer so that every time the manufacturing team asked if we could make an investment for new capital equipment on the mascara line or the lip gloss line, I said, take me over and show me. And when I was there, I talked to the operators on the line and I asked them, what have you done to improve our process lately? How can we save money? How are we not listening to you that we could put your good ideas into practice? And we saved, I'm not kidding, over 10 margin points in the cost of our products by listening to our workers on the line who knew better than anyone else how we could save money. One of my leadership themes is momentum. I've been known to say, once we get momentum, we will never, ever let it go. And as a basketball coach for my kids' teams for many years, I taught my girls to always play from their toes and not get caught on their heels. And this is a great analogy for business as well. Test markets, learning labs, pilots are all ways to create momentum for your business. Unpaid internships, volunteering for research projects, being a leader in campus organizations. These are momentum creators for your career. It's not always easy to keep things moving forward, especially when times get tough like they have in the last few years. A lot of people get scared during bad times, but learning to embrace them is key. Never waste a crisis. It is a rare opportunity when change is so inevitable that half the battle is won already. The inertia of people saying, but this is how we've always done it, is removed. So the road is paved for change. You just have to get in front of leading change in the right direction. There are many examples of companies that did not change fast enough. They were afraid to obsolete themselves as the market changed. Blockbuster, BlackBerry, Kodak. The healthcare industry, for example, is changing so fast today that what works today may not be what works in 3 to 5 years. That's why I believe that an individual approach to medications will make a big difference over the long term. Maintaining the status quo would put us out of business. But we need to proactively identify gaps, find ways of making things better and cheaper, create new partnerships. We can never be afraid of obsoleting the current way of doing things. So now we have a compelling vision. We can articulate it in a simple and memorable way so that everyone can understand it. What's next? Well, vision is no good if it's yours alone. In my experience, to be successful, turning a compelling vision into reality means that you must be a leader that others want to follow. One thing I've learned about this is that it's important to be predictable. And what I mean by that is that it's important to have a definable leadership style and way of making decisions. I hope that when people are in meetings today at Assurex Health and I'm not there and somebody says, oh, well, what would Gina do? Or what would Gina say? That it's very obvious to everyone what I would do, that I'm a predictable enough leader that the organization operates just fine when I'm not there. Another of my themes is team first, and hopefully this is a predictable theme based on all the things that I've already said today. It's true at work and it's true at home. If my kids were here today and you said, what's the one word that is your mom's theme word? They would probably together shout, togetherness. Because I would much rather have a family dinner, hang out together, sit on the sofa and snuggle together and watch their show for the third time than watch the latest, greatest season finale of my show. Togetherness makes a big difference. Leaders who get followed develop their team to achieve their very best. They bring others behind them. They lift as they climb. They push obstacles out of the way and serve their teams. Serve their teams, helping them to achieve breakthrough results. And then rightfully, they give their team the credit and share the joy of their accomplishments. For me, it helps me to see myself as a coach 364 days a year, helping my team to be better, pointing out opportunities for improvement in a way that everyone can feel comfortable about and embrace. And then I'm a judge one day a year on performance review day. But that way, my feedback is always much easier to take and very authentic. Finally, be a real person. Be humble. Remember, it's really okay not to know everything. No one does, even the CEO. In fact, it's even preferable to be humble and recognize that you don't know everything. Bosses need to make it okay to leave early for important family events by announcing it when they do, not sneaking out the back door. I exercise before work and I invite others to join me. I tell stories about mistakes I've made. Be approachable, ask questions, and then listen. Really listen to understand the answer and what's behind it. If you do this well as a leader, you will be in the loop on the really important things that can help you lead better. For example, bad news will actually travel to you as fast as good news. And you'll find that it's easier to authentically take care of yourself too, which is critically important when you're at the top. So I'd like to close today with a vision for the industry that I'm now part of, and share it with you, just as an example of setting vision for business. There's no question that healthcare is at a transformational tipping point. Change is imperative, and I believe we're already beginning to see an accelerated pace of change that will continue to accelerate exponentially. So having a compelling vision is more important than ever. Consumers are and will increasingly demand these changes. So while I may be relatively new to healthcare, I'm deeply familiar with consumers, particularly women. They make 80% of the healthcare decisions for their families. They are more likely to be a caregiver when a family member falls ill. Women build stronger relationships and have greater brand affinity for their healthcare plans, providers, and solutions. Women are savvy, online information seekers, and they share what they learn and experience. And importantly, women are doctors, hospital presidents, insurance decision makers, and policy innovators. The healthcare community, with all of our leadership, must break down silos, employ more technology, use more common platforms, and undertake a more team-based approach to healthcare. Economics is forcing these changes. The incredible financial burden of our healthcare system can and must be addressed. The goal is to help patients be empowered to achieve the healthcare outcomes that are possible, relevant, and most important to them individually. I believe tremendous advancement will be made as we take action toward patient-improved medicine, patient-empowered medicine, educating consumers and providing them valuable information to empower deselection, including collectively pushing toward more transparent pricing. There's no business I've ever been part of where the pricing is more confusing than in the healthcare market. If you want to buy a mascara, you go to Walmart and it costs $7.99. If you want to buy an MRI, how much does it cost? Where do you get it? Where could you get it for the best value? Who's the best provider of that? The entire value equation is not transparent and needs to become so. We need to make preventative health care more accessible and affordable, particularly for people your age, where doing preventative health care things now can make a profound difference in your longevity and quality of life and, frankly, cost to the healthcare system. We need to empower earlier and more accurate decision-making by healthcare providers, leveraging objective, individualized data, especially when it's a significant cost savings. And we need to remember to care, because healthcare is and always will be one of the most human of all professions. I'd like to close today with a story. A few weeks ago, we received a call from a doctor who had used our GeneSight test for one of his patients. This usually very reserved psychiatrist was nothing short of ecstatic. He'd been treating a 19-year-old depressed young man for over 1.5 years and had never seen him smile. After struggling with medication after medication, none of which seemed to be making a difference, he decided to use GeneSight. The medication combination that he used afterwards was, in his words, something he never would have thought of. He called us so excited because the young man had just left his office with a wide grin on his face. The doctor wanted to share his joy at helping this young man smile again. Well, his story made me smile and cry, and I get a little choked up actually every time I tell it, but it reinforces why the vision of mental wellness through individualized medication selection must become a reality for many more patients as soon as possible. My team is working our hairy dog tails off to make this possible. And I believe that we will. We will be able to provide patients and their doctors the objective, individualized information that helps patients get on the road to mental wellness faster and at a lower cost. This is a compelling vision that we are committed to making a reality. Well, thank you very much. I would love to take any questions from anyone today about any part of my talk or anything else.
Hey, I'm Trevor Woodward. I'm a third-year ILA student in the Terry College of Business, and one of the most important aspects of leadership that we're learning is leading from a place of values. So could you tell us a little bit about your top 2 values that drive your day-to-day operations?
Mm-hmm. For sure. So I would say the top 2 values that drive me day-to-day are, number 1, integrity. I am always who I am. I give it to people straight. I'm very transparent. I never blind copy people on emails, and, politics is something I don't participate in at all. And I make sure that all of my organization understands that we are in business to do the right thing. In fact, we're in business to make a difference for people, to help people. We don't make any money as a company. We're a venture-funded startup company. We will, once we become a public company, need to make money for our shareholders, of course. But our mission is front and center, and there's a lot of integrity wrapped around that. And the second is people. I really believe fundamentally in the power of teams. I have never been in situations where I alone made better decisions than I could make with a great team surrounding me, contributing, talking about it, thinking about it together. I really believe the blind spots example that I gave you. And so I try to be really good with my team. I try to make sure we're having fun together, and I try to make sure everyone's very clear on what the expectations are, that I'm doing everything I can to help build their careers, that I make sure I reward them for great performance so they never have to sit around their office thinking about when am I going to get a raise, or am I doing well enough, that I've already communicated those things to them in advance of when they would have been thinking about it themselves. So integrity and building the team would be 2 for me. Yeah.
Hi, Rachel J. I am also a third-year ILA student studying accounting here. And through your life and experiences, I was just wondering, what is one of your greatest leadership challenges that you've had?
I've had a lot, so let me think how to just pick one. I think that your true colors really come out in times of crisis, and that's where I got this idea that I shared with you today about never wasting a crisis, because it can be very easy to get scared of what might happen and become very conservative, but actually it's really the moment in your career when it's most important to be bold and be who you are. And so I'm going to give you kind of a non-businessy example of that, but I was on a plane flying to a sales meeting in Salt Lake City on 9/11. And all of a sudden, the pilot came over the speakers and said, we're going to be making an emergency landing in Kansas City, and so I just want everyone to know that we're beginning to descend. And I happened to be sitting in the front row of the coach section, and so I called the flight attendant over and I said, do you think this is a temporary stop, or, what's going on? And she said, well, all of the flights, it sounds like, are being grounded. And I said, so you think we're going to be here for a while? She said, well, if I were you, I would hop off this plane and either go get a hotel room or get a rental car. And so I turned around, and there were about 10 of us from P&G on the plane, I thought. I wasn't exactly sure. And so I turned around, and I located a guy 2 rows behind, and I said to him, Bruce, as soon as the plane stops, I'm not going to take my bag. Will you grab it for me? I'm going to run for National Rental Car, and will you count the P&G people as they come off the plane? And sure enough, I feel like I sort of went into command mode, I was like, all right, count the people, and whatever. And we were safe all together. I got to National Rental Car just in time to rent the last 2 minivans that were there. There were 11 people on the plane that he was counting as they came off, and we were all together, and we got in the minivans, and we caravanned back to Cincinnati, all of us together, sad and distraught, and anyone who was, old enough to remember, that day in a meaningful way will know the emotions that went on around that. But I look back on that day and I say, praise God for learning leadership kinds of things in the easy times, because then they come out in the hard times without you even having to think about it. And so I had, thankfully, a bit of an innate ability to just organize it all and keep us all, safe and together. So I think the time horizon of strategic planning is always difficult to manage. So you really want to have vision and strategies that you can look to on different time horizons. So, for example, I have a 10-year vision of what I think our company can become as a public company that hasn't just treated 100,000 people using our test, but has treated millions of people using our test, and is the go-to product for psychiatrists, so that people never go through that roller coaster of trial and error, so they can always get onto the right medication the first time. It's a 10-year vision of the science, and probably even beyond psychiatry. Why not hypertension? Why not diabetes? I mean, this idea of genetic testing to help people get on the right medication so that they can achieve wellness better and more quickly and more cost effectively is a big idea, I think, across markets. So that's a big vision. But you can never bite off part of that elephant and expect it to happen. So you have to have different time horizons that work all the way back. And the way that I find it's best to do it is to do quarterly action plans. So literally think in 3-month chunks about what do you need to accomplish to achieve the strategies that will ultimately get you to the goals that will ultimately deliver that great big vision. And if you do that and you measure your team against that and your team helps put it together, then I find you make really great progress toward that. The other thing you have to do is every 3 years, revisit even the big picture and see if it's changed. And any time you see significant market changes coming, for goodness sakes, you don't wait 3 years. You make those changes even more quickly. There are, 700 organizations or something on campus? I mean, there really here is something for everyone. So one of the things that I always like to think about are what are the most important needs of students and what are the biggest unmet needs, right? So if I said in the deodorant market, the most important need is not to smell and not to get wetness under your arms, right? So those would be the most important. So any great product would have to fulfill those most important needs. But the unmet needs might appeal to different niches of consumers. So for example, we found on Secret that there was a niche of women who, you are really going to laugh at this, who consider themselves to be heavy sweaters. And it actually wasn't really true. I mean, there was a much smaller percentage of people who actually sweat a lot versus the people who perceived, that was an important thing, but they couldn't stand wetness. I mean, if they saw like wetness on their clothes, they're like, this is the worst thing ever. My deodorant has failed. Forget it. And they were willing to pay actually quite a high price to have a product that worked perfectly. So the deodorant market at that time had peak pricing of about $4. We launched a product for $8.99 called Secret Clinical Strength, so more than double the maximum price in the market. And we marketed it to two very defined audiences within that group. We marketed it to high school girl athletes via social media because they were carrying Guy deodorants in their gym bags and they, didn't want to like smell after working out so hard. And we marketed it to menopausal women who were getting hot flashes and felt like they couldn't necessarily control when they were sweating. Well, of course, you can't do a national advertising campaign that works for both of those. So we used digital marketing to go after those two groups. But we found within that great big need, we found an unmet need that we could then target to a couple of very specific audiences. And it was highly successful. And then we've now expanded out the program. I mean, if you look at the advertising now for Secret Clinical Strength, you'll see that there's a stress product, right? So, I mean, I could be wearing that one today, right? I'm up on the stage in front of a lot of people, when you're in a big moment, you might want the stress product. So it has continued to expand to find those moments when people really don't want to sweat. I think the same thing would be true for organizations, right? There are probably some big needs or opportunities for organizations, but there are also those unmet needs that could be maybe more niche, and you could position yourself in a way that really attracts people to come. I've done some pro bono consulting for young entrepreneurs, people who are maybe 1-2 years out of school. And the biggest mistake that they make on their business is trying to think that they can sell their product to everyone. They think whoever, I say to them, who's your target audience? And they say, whoever will buy my product. I'll sell it to anyone. And that's a tremendous mistake. It is much better to target your product to be loved among a smaller group that you can then expand out from than it is to try to target your product to be big, whatever. So that principle, I think, would apply equally to campus organizations. Well, let me answer your question two ways. One is, I think business success definitely can be a product of great vision, great strategies, smart investments, all of that. But honestly, I'd rather be lucky than good. I mean, if you're in the right place at the right time and you can take advantage of a market dynamic, you can have a highly successful business without all of those things necessarily in place. My thought is always be prepared to take advantage of those opportunities. So I would, under that thought, I would say that I believe that diversity is critically important for every business. I think it's a fundamental business strategy. I don't think it's a nice to have. I think it's a must have. And I don't just mean gender diversity or ethnic diversity. I really do mean diversity of thought and educational background, and I love to get international perspective. My CFO is from the UK. Despite the fact that we have a very U.S.-based business right now, I think it's fantastic to have people from different backgrounds because they can help you think differently. So I would not look at the success of a Google or Yahoo or any of the high-tech firms who may not be as diverse and say that that has been a good choice for them. I would say they're still young companies, and diversity could only make them stronger and better, and I don't think that it's something that varies across industries. The whole thing about being a confident enough leader to surround yourself with people who are different from you is one of the best leadership lessons I could share with you. It's very easy to have people around you who say, yes, you're so smart, way to go, what a super idea, whatever. That is so wrong. It is really a short-term way of thinking. The much better long-term way of thinking is to have people around you who will tell you what's not working and help you see the things you can't see. And in my experience, a diverse team does that significantly better than a team that's more alike. Good? All right. Very nice.
Well, on behalf of the Institute for Leadership Advancement and the Terry
thank
College
you.
of Business, we'd like to thank you for speaking today.
Great. Thank you very much. That's great. Good. Well, best of luck to all of you. You know, if I have a very open door, so if there's ever anything I could do to help any of you or answer questions or things like that, I'd be more than happy to do that. And go Dogs.